Let us examine this poem, Elegy written in a country churchyard by Thomas Gray, in the context of the 18th century Enlightenment movement. The Enlightenment movement was a philosophical and intellectual movement that gave priority to rationality or human reason. This poem, Elegy written in a country churchyard, is a meditation on unused human potentials, the conditions of country or village lives, and village life, and the inevitable fate of humanity, regardless of wealth, power, and status. That is the subject matter in this poem. Then Thomas Gray uses this elegy to emphasize circumstances as the cause of unused human potentials, and human beings or humans' mental capacity to free themselves from the circumstances through what? Reason and rationality. This poem emphasizes what? Emphasizes circumstances as the reason for human beings not utilizing their potentials effectively, and also the mental capacity of human beings to free themselves from the circumstances through what? Reason or rationality. Then coming to this poem as an Enlightenment era, a poem that belongs to the Enlightenment era. Then the Enlightenment was based on the scientific great advances or great advancements made by scientists in the 17th and 18th century. And one key scientific principle that was reflected greatly in this poem is the principle or theory of universal gravitation propounded by Sir Isaac Newton. One aspect of this theory is that anything that goes up must come down. There is a landing point for anything that goes up. It's a must that anything that goes up will do what? Come down. And in this poem, you see Thomas Gray emphasizing that there is a must for every mortal, and that must is what? Death. That death is inevitable. Death is inevitable. If you look at the poem, there is a place that the poet said, the path of glory, all of them await an inevitable end, an inevitable hour, and then the path of glory will lead to where? To the grave. Meaning that every mortal must what? Die one day. Death is inevitable. Death is a leveler. And when you come to death, there is no distinction in death between the rich and the poor. The same death that strikes the rich, the same death that strikes the poor. Then another aspect of this theory of universal gravitation is the behavior of matters according to the circumstances. The matters behave differently according to the circumstances. According to the poem, the poet emphasized that the circumstance that brought about the unused potentials of those poor villagers he celebrated in this poem is what? Poverty. Poverty was the circumstance that confined them to those attributes that were associated with them in this poem. Part of the poem says that sheer penury repressed their noble rage and froze the genuine current of their soul, which means that the circumstance that restricted them from utilizing their potential, it was what? Sheer penury or poverty. Another enlightenment principle or idea in this poem is the philosophical idea of rationality. Rationality or rationalism, or you call it reason. The proponents of this Enlightenment era really emphasized the idea of rationalism in everything human beings do. During this Enlightenment period, England was organized along class distinction. The difference, the gap between the rich and the poor. Political rulers ruled based on the long-standing tradition, what their predecessors handed over to them. Royalty ruled in relation to what the previous rulers, and landowners feasted while peasants starved because of the right of what inheritance, right based on inheritance. But this was what was obtainable in England then. But this idea of rationalism undermines such rights and blurs what class what distinction. As you can see, according to the poem, that there is no distinction in death between the rich and the poor. A time will come when all road, all the paths of glory, all the achievements you have made in life will lead to a particular destination called death. If you look at the a part of the poem I read, the boast of heraldry, the pomp of power, and all that beauty, and all that beauty, all that wealth ever gave await alike the inevitable hour. Then the paths of glory lead but to the grave. Then he says further, nor you, ye proud, impute these the fault, if memory over their tomb no trophy is raised. Where through the long drawn eye and fretted vows, the pealy anthem swears the note of praise. Then he says, can stop on or animated bust back to his mansion call the fleeting breath? Can honor's voice provoke the silent dust, or flattery suit the dark cold ear of what? Death. All these achievements, trophy, animated bust, stored on, they cannot bring the breath back to what? To the dead body, to the mansion. So if that is the case, why the distinction in classes? Why do we have class distinctions? If the rich understand really that all of us, both the rich and the poor, will meet at a particular juncture in life, that means that there should be no what class or what distinction. So that is the idea of rationalism. Then another principle that was very close to this the idea of rationalism is the idea of scientific observation. That anything that is not backed with a solid scientific proof should not be taken by anybody. Anything that does not have any reasonable proof, it doesn't matter how long that tradition has been in existence, as long as it does not have any scientific or reasonable proof, that thing should not be upheld by anybody. Even in the Church of England was also strongly influenced or affected by this long tradition. Long-standing religious principles were also the talk of the day in the churches, and these Enlightenment thinkers had a serious clash with the religious leaders, because it was like as if they were preaching heresies, and that was why some of these Enlightenment thinkers were sent to jail. Then another important aspect of this Enlightenment principle is all about the American Revolution in 1776 and the French Revolution of from 1789 to 1799. All these revolutions were aimed at making life better for people, promoting human freedom, bringing all about equality. Then the American Revolution marked the beginning of a society based on rationality and fairness. as it granted the people living in North America the right to be able to decide what is best for them. Not a king from England then ruling them or dictating what is that he feels is what is best for them. And this brings still emphasizes this what human beings' ability to reason, the ability, the mental capacity of human beings, or the idea of reason. Then for French Revolution of that started from 1789 to 1799, it was an attempt to let individuals control their own destinies based on their faith in what? In reason. So all these are the ideas of the